Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to the second official recording of the New American Landscape with Zach, Strauser, and Jared. Jared is officially our co-host, and it's been about
We
a
did the
month
last
and a
one.
half, or maybe even more.
Yeah, it was like at
2
the end
months.
of June, I think.
Yeah.
So it's been a few months.
So much for us trying to do one once a month. I think maybe it'll be every 2 months, and then maybe eventually once a month. But
Yeah.
I think what is one of our biggest reasons for probably not putting content out or getting together is we think that we don't have things in order, whether it's the right guest or whether it's the right content. So what's our philosophy more and more is, who cares? Let's do something.
Yeah, exactly. Because the longer we just wait around, nothing's being accomplished, and then competitors or whoever is like, the people that are actually going to get somewhere are the ones that are actually doing something, right? Doesn't
Yeah.
even really matter what you're doing, as long as it's not like heinous. Like, as long as you're just putting something out there, like, you almost can't go wrong.
Right.
In a way.
And I think we have enough going on currently and in the horizon with just the way we work together, what's going on in my businesses and what's going on with your business, and that I'm sure we're going to be able to fill up some minutes here and hopefully give someone some sort of information or content or insight on what's going on that they'll see some value in.
Yeah.
So.
So I guess, like, should we start just talking about the last one? So.
Yeah, like what we did, what maybe went wrong or right.
Well, okay, so
with the first recording.
Right off the bat, the number one thing to mention here is obviously that chirping noise. We're still working on that. That's a
work order's
smoke
been
alarm.
in. The work order's in to get it fixed. It's
Yeah.
still.
So
Well, we just did actually find out our alarm and fire guy said that's not his. It was one of the original fire alarms that was put in. It's not part of the system. It's like an old system. So we kind of have two systems. So the backup old one is not working anymore.
Yeah.
So if you hear a chirp, that's what it is.
Trust me, it's just as annoying to us, and it's just as annoying when
I don't hear it
listening to
anymore
recording.
because it's been going on for a year,
That's
I think, or
true.
more.
Yeah, you can get tone deaf to it,
But yeah, so on our last recording with Jim Houston, we
Yep.
had the cameras in a different angle. We changed
Yeah.
those. We were getting it from our side view.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one little tweak. We got a little desk in between us,
Yeah.
which we can keep our phones on and watch for messages or whatever.
Well, I got a timer on mine. I'm not just looking at my phone for the sake of it. Yeah. Yeah, this is a little different setup because the last time you guys didn't even see me. I was literally sitting. This is what, a 6x6 room? What is the size of this?
Probably
room?
8x8.
Yeah,
we'll call it.
it's pretty dang small. So like we're already in the furthest like opposite corners, and then last week, whatever, last.
It's
year.
our library, we call it.
Yeah, I was sitting basically in between them, about 3 feet away. So yeah, now it's like I'm actually on the camera, which is really weird. I'd rather just have my earbuds in and monitor everything.
So when we met with Jim Houston, there was no we didn't have any kind of format to generally what we wanted to achieve in it, other than just try to get people to understand Jim and I's relationship to some extent. And I think we did that okay. I think it's probably not for everybody. For someone that's heavily involved in the landscape industry, I think it would have probably meant something a little more, because Jim is a legend within our industry on the number side, so it was cool. And the best thing about that was he was the first consultant I've ever had. So if I was going to do the first podcast ever, kind of fit. And so let's maybe talk about a little bit, maybe about who we envision bringing in too. So one person is another Jim. His name is Jim Paluch from JP Horizons. He's done wonders with me over the years in the sense of inspiration and really kind of continuing to find your purpose. He's great with getting teams together and kind of all getting on the same page. And mostly, he's a great speaker. He really can get a group of people and maybe if you wanted, you could show a couple clips of it. You just cut out in this video and show a couple clips of the was it 2 Thursdays ago?
Yeah, it was almost
our
2 weeks
event
ago.
here.
Yeah, we got some video of that. I'm sure.
Yeah, show a couple, and he can get it when you get 75 people acting like they're howling like wolves. You know that you have some skills in getting people.
He does a great job of just breaking people out of their like comfort zone, out of your shell.
Yeah.
Especially like because it's easier when the people around you are all doing the same thing. It can be a little weird when it's like your coworkers and you're trying to just kind of like maintain a certain persona that they all know you as. But when everybody's like encouraged to also kind of branch out and reach out and do something different, like it definitely works. Because like I don't even remember how many years ago that was. When I first started working for you as a landscaper back in 2013, I think.
Wow, that long?
Yeah, I think that was the first event. We had the big tent outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember him being there for that. That was cool. That was the first time I met him, and like he definitely like kind of touched.
So speaking of that, he wants some footage, just so for everyone what a face-to-face is. So Jim Paluch, who will be a guest today, talking to him on the phone, we decided that maybe it'll be Vermont because we're doing our annual planning retreat.
Nice.
Coming up in 2 weeks up in Vermont at the farm. So
yeah.
he's actually going to help MC and be the facilitator of that.
Awesome.
2 days with the whole team. But I had mentioned with him, he has to get more active on LinkedIn, social media in general.
Yeah.
And I said, you really should be trying to almost have someone at those events, video, showcase them. And I said, we did. And he's like, well, maybe Jared would be inclined to sell me or get with me on some of that footage that they can start to use. But so I don't know where I was headed with that exactly. But so for anyone that doesn't know what the face-to-face was, it was basically 2 weeks ago. Our company was lucky enough to have about 75 people come to our company. We had about 20, let's say, landscape companies, and they brought maybe one of their 2 top managers. And basically, we also had 10 SUNY students from Albany from the agriculture and environmental program there. We had Phil Saxton from WIT Consulting. We had a bunch of our vendors. Western Snowplow was here. Husqvarna from our robotic mower side of things. It was just an awesome whole day event where we really get to learn who each other is and are, and also the way we do things at our company. But the biggest thing that we get out of it is they get to critique us on what we do, what we might need to improve on. So that was the biggest kind of, I think, benefit we got out of it at the end of the day. Was we had a whole bunch of peers from all over the country and went up into Canada come and help us improve. So that was awesome. And then the next day, we had a total company event where all our staff was here. And we basically got to extend what we learned with the whole face-to-face into our whole company and get them all excited about some of the direction that we're headed. So it was awesome.
It's cool from like an outsider perspective, like to see so many different businesses all within the same industry, and at least I believe they were. I don't know them all personally,
pretty much.
But yeah, just to see all of them come together, and then I bounced around because I was taking photos of
and some of them were competitors.
Yeah, that's the thing too.
So that's like we've crossed paths and not like local competitors, but regional competitors.
Yeah,
on some big properties.
That whole like concept in my head, like as I was going throughout the day, like because they're all listening, they're all paying attention, and they're not here to like steal like ideas. I want to say like no one's here really to steal ideas, but you're sharing ideas. Like it's intentional. That
I call it R&D it. Rob and duplicate. Rob and duplicate.
Right, but they're all listening to what's going on here, and it's not just like, oh, they're doing that, that's cool. Like, okay, well, how can we apply this to our own? They're also here to help you try and solve the current issues that you're facing in the business, and to offer their own perspective. As some of them are bigger businesses than your own, so they've already crossed a lot of the hurdles, and so for you, it's kind of like hearing like how did this work for you guys. So I've been to probably 10 at least face-to-faces in other companies where I was on the other side, and
you pick up tidbits when you're the guest,
Mm-hmm.
and you try to narrow it down to like one or two key things you went home with, and you try to implement it. And I've always, if I have a couple staff with me, I'll try to say, okay, what's your takeaway? What are you going to implement? One guy a couple years back, his takeaway was we were going to implement a taller safety cone for the trucks. And today we have a pretty tall, prominent cone.
Yeah.
So that was just his takeaway, but it's
Yeah.
awesome. And look, it's like a lasting kind of impact it's had on our company for 3 or 4 years now. So, but being on the side of having the guests, holy moly! I mean, it was, you can't even,
Yeah. It's
there was even a few tears shed. I think, I got all emotional talking
Yeah.
about someone that impacted my life, and so it was an awesome 2 days. And really, our role right now is to try to keep that momentum going.
Yeah, it's got to be like almost like a self-perception, like shattering event, right? Because like
When they were making fun of me doing self-posts.
not even that, no, like just in general, like I think everyone like who runs a business has an image of where they stand amongst their own industry
And
especially
pride,
locally.
you kind of have that
Yes,
pride
there's an
side.
element of pride. There's self-esteem, self-consciousness. Like you might have some insecurities about the way you do things, or there's like things that you may normally you don't even have to hide them because it's not like people are here from outside your business that may see things. So when you invite everybody in, like behind closed doors, to see what's really going on, you open yourself up a lot, and I think that's a huge level of vulnerability for a lot of people, and so it's cool.
And I truly enjoyed it. It's a huge milestone in my business. It was like, it's a one, like, let's just say if you owned, 2-3 restaurants, or you owned a restaurant and you had 50 or so restaurant owners come into your restaurant and critique how you do it. It's one of the greatest things about our industry, and I've always said that is, the green industry, that, by the way, needs to become much more greener, but nevertheless, the green industry is what we're kind of known for, at least internally. And that's the greatest thing about it, is that there's just so much help and support within the industry, peer to peer. It's amazing, and I don't know if that's the case in many other industries. I know the more you get global, or the more you get international with your services and product. I think I said this on the last podcast, but I know someone that has a business that intertwines in states and countries. And it's very hard for him to get any peer support because every one of his peers is direct competition. And but like I said, we did have some guests here that there's nothing to say that we wouldn't be on the same property bidding against each other. So no local competition came. Local.
It was only invite, like it's invite only, right? Because it's a group you're all associated with certain.
Well, what's funny about that is it's invite only, but it's not really invite by me. I mean, obviously I put some invites out, but it was, Jim Paluch really, through his network and his email lists and his marketing abilities are really who brought the people in. Obviously, if someone with my same address put a request in, he might call me and say, "Are you okay with X coming?" And I'd have to say I probably would have, but do the local competition? Are they intimidated by, or do they not like me? I don't know. Who knows? But for whatever reasons, I don't think they would have came anyway. But I probably would have let them.
Yeah.
They probably don't know that, but I would have. Why not?
Yeah, it's interesting because, again, from my outsider perspective, of course, I don't necessarily have an outsider perspective with as much time as I've spent within your company. Like, to see what you guys do and the people that we've been speaking to over the phone just today, like, they're right about, like, you have something very unique going on here, like, just with your mission and, like, what your company stands behind that, like, not the majority of landscaping companies or property maintenance companies are even onto. So to compare yourself at a local level is almost not fair.
Yeah, and to expand on what that is, just so everyone's clear, is we are what we call a better way. It's not just our company is better, but when we talk about we have a better way, it's generally tying right now to the environmental impact that the landscape industry is having between pesticides or fertilizers or water use or emissions, salt usage and it really all boils down to clean air and clean water. And we think that we have a lot of work to do to get cleaner as an environment, as an industry. Sorry, and we're trying to be vocal about that. Clearly, not someone saying we have all the answers. We may be as naive on something as someone else, or we also may just not understand. We see what we need to fix, but we don't know how to yet. Example is, how much salt do we use on someone's property? They want really clean environment in the sense of no salt. That's a clean environment to them.
Yeah.
So no slipping hazards, some fall hazard potentials. But we're starting to look at it from, that's great. That is a service we offer. We want to try to help you eliminate or at least decrease that potential. But at the end of the day, we're hurting the environment also by how much salt we're using. So one of our speakers actually had talked about, I think it's, don't hold me to the exact term or numbers, but 50 years, or was it 2050? I don't know. But if it's 2050, it's even more serious. But in 50 years, I'm pretty sure it was, if we continue to use the amount of salt we use, we will basically eliminate any clean and good water just out of the salt that we apply on parking lots. So when you talk about something that dismal where it's just like, holy moly, it hits you like a ton of bricks. So that's our better way of trying to figure out how to change that. Is it the type of products we use? Is it how much we're putting down? Is it when we apply the salt? And that goes through all different things in our company. It's not just salt. That's why we're using robot mowers. That's why we're using propane mowers. That's why we use, some of the crews have electric trimmers and blowers. So that's why we're trying to use less mulch and more plants in the beds. The list goes on and on and on. But, we're trying to get people to be a little more comfortable with maybe some weeds in their lawn versus a perfect carpet lawn with no weeds. Maybe that isn't the best thing. Maybe decreasing some of your lawn space and what we call, naturalize some of your lawn areas. So you're not cutting as much grass that people don't even walk or sit on to begin with.
Yeah.
So that's our better way. That's our mission as a company. Or one of the key kind of initiatives we have as a company, especially from an external on, we have a lot of internal goals and internal kind of values and beliefs that we build throughout our team. But when you go external on how are we helping the community, environment, and our customers, we think it's really boils down to an environmental focus. That now, like you said, we were on a phone call today with a marketing person helping us write a story for a video we're doing. And she had, like you just said, mentioned about us being so far out in front of this. And I guess at times I feel pretty lonely because of that.
Yeah.
And not getting a ton of buy-in when you have these conversations with people, whether it's industry, whether it's clients. They're not just getting really excited about it immediately because it's such a daunting, big task. Like, well, what do you mean? How would we use less salt? And I don't necessarily have all the answers. I just know that, we have to start talking about it. So
right.
That's what we're doing. That's what we did on Friday when we had our whole team together. I mean, that was kind of where we ended up, where is let's get really environmentally focused here because, it's not as simple as, the green industry will talk about, 1,000 square feet of turf gives enough of oxygen for a family of 4 to live. But my statement back is, what goes into making that 1,000 square feet of lawn? 1,000 square feet is not big. It's just so people that don't really know space it's not big. It's like upstairs of this building.
Oh, see, I wouldn't even know.
Right. So, but what goes into it? You know, how much fertilizer, how much weed control are we doing?
The
trucks that drive there to do it. So, you know, that's when robot mowers start to make a little more sense. And no, autonomous equipment will not take jobs away. It'll create different jobs. It'll create different focus points. And if anyone wants, that could be just a podcast in itself on, let's get realistic. You know, that would be like saying TVs took away jobs and didn't allow newspapers or radio stations to have their job anymore.
Yeah, it's such a knee-jerk reaction. Like, I mean, we saw it during that employee event. Like, you have people within your company that detest it because they're concerned about.
And with 2 to 3% unemployment or whatever we are, there's no one to hire anymore anyway. So maybe we could afford a little unemployment so they could have other opportunities, and look at different things they could actually get involved with. Right now, it's like everyone's just running to feed the jobs that are needed. So realistically, I don't know if depleting jobs is really necessarily a bad thing when you talk about it, because it'll probably open up other opportunities.
That's true. So, and like, I mean, without even getting like too deep into the issue of robots taking jobs, like just in general, like when you start to see that obviously like autonomous machinery is taking place of a labor intensive position, like you can't stop it. There's no stopping that. Like it's going to happen. So then it becomes less of, you can't fight your own company that's going to try and shift in a direction that is only natural and like makes sense, and that's where everything's going. You have to then figure out, okay, well, where do I fit into this puzzle?
Yeah, there's just a ton of value in tradition. There's a ton of value in trades in the sense of, I'm a true craftsman. You know, craftsmanship is forgotten about, and I get that argument. But at the end of the day, if we probably, with the amount of people we have in the world, we can't live like we used to. That's the problem. You know, so this shift and change for speed and autonomous functions, it's just the way it has to be because there's more people.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of the way it is. You can't feed the people the same as you used to. You can't mow lawns the way you used to. It's all changed. Yeah. That'd be like saying Z-Riders. Anyone that doesn't know, they're the sit-down commercial mowers that you see most commercial landscape companies zipping around properties on. That'd be like saying when they started with Z-Riders that those other really old mowers with one wheel in the back that you steered, they were very cumbersome to operate. It'd be like saying it's going to take away because we're mowing lawns twice as fast now with Z-Riders. So
it's like looking at like the drone industry, and by drone I mean the aerial drones.
It's taking away helicopter pilot jobs. Yeah, I don't probably think it probably did.
Yeah, and those were the first people to now adapt to the new industry because they already have the aviation knowledge. They understand airspace and flying.
Right.
And the only pilots that are losing their jobs for the drone industry are ones that take photos, aerial photography, and even that they really haven't, because it's still like there's many places you're not taking a drone, and then with the drones you've now created a multitude of jobs because you have lowered the cost of what it takes to build that product, the photography itself. So now you made it more. You
probably created, taken away one pilot for aerial shots. Maybe we created hundreds
because
of
before
people getting paid. I mean, you have a job using your drone that we bought, and you fly it for us. So it's
and before that, like, I mean, you got to think like there wasn't that many aerial photographers. Like I know there's people that go around, they just take photos, they fly over neighborhoods and take a photo of everyone's house, and then they print it all out and they go sell it door to door. Now you just have hundreds of people with the service available of drone, photography, because the cost of entry is so low. But also because it's so low, the product price has gone down dramatically, meaning that more people are interested in buying, and the amount of people willing to now buy that product is far outweighing the cost of what it took to create it in the past, and what became the entry barrier, I guess. I don't know, I'm not probably phrasing this entirely correctly, but I think people will get it. Like, it's opened up like a million opportunities. So
So I'm not sure how we got on all the robots and autonomous stuff, but at the end of the day,
it's the change in the industry.
The change, and I think everybody's talking about it. I mean, if you can't, between the news, between just general posts on social media, there's a lot of buzz on AI and all this. Oh my God! All we know is that, in my opinion, we need to stop being concerned on those things and primarily be concerned on our impact on the environment. And I think that I'm nowhere near the person that should be looked at as the example of, oh, well, look what he's doing, and that's environmentally friendly. It's that, if anything, they just would look at me and say, hey, Zach's talking about it. And that's kind of the name of this podcast, was derived from the New American Landscape. And it doesn't just have to be the landscape industry. Obviously, we're going to be a little biased and tie that in because that's been a huge part of my life mostly. But the New American Landscape there's a lot of change going on in the landscape of what? Business, this, that, landscaping, of course, but
the entire country.
Farming. There needs to be a huge change in the landscape of farming. So just call it the landscape of anything. There's a lot of change going on. So I think the name for the New American Landscape, that's where it came from. Is there's just a lot of change going on, and I think the name kind of hits that. So so Jim Paluch being a guest in the near future should be really awesome, and we won't. I'll try to not even talk about things right now that we'll end up talking about.
So you start talking about his past. And,
if I start talking about Come Alive Outside and when we met and all that, we're going to take it away. So we'll leave that. Some other people is Phil Saxton, who I do want to have come on. He actually was one of our keynote speakers, kind of an industry in the landscape industry, seen a lot, been through a lot, and came up through the ranks in the industry to a pretty high level, and then is now working in the environmental arena. So I think it's going to be great to have him on because it's all going to be about stats. We really hit it off in alignment in a lot of our ideas and thoughts. And what's so awesome about Phil is that he just articulates it very well, and went and got him an education in sustainability, I believe, from Harvard.
Wow.
After his landscape career, and didn't really understand at the time that it would come full circle, I don't think. And so now he's back in the landscape arena trying to help from an environmental side of things. Not just that, education. Today he's in Jersey teaching a class with Snow and Ice Management Association that I have a few of my staff at. So
nice. He's
kind of everywhere. So it'll be great to have Phil on. Who else? Boy, I know I have a whole list written down.
There's so many possibilities to just bring people on that it's hard to even just narrow down.
I mean, and I think as it goes, we're going to see it not just be in the landscape arena, because I call it, there's a triangle that I'm involved in, that I'm creating, and the triangle for me is agriculture, horticulture, and apparel and brand, and kind of like the culture of those. And that's what I call Urture. So it's not just clothing and apparel. It's almost going to be like a culture between what I call the green collar workforce. So for anyone that hasn't heard that yet, start looking it up, start using the hashtag. Green collar workforce is basically anyone that's working in the outdoors or indoors that is tying into, but predominantly, let's say, outdoor functions that is tying to the environment and the change that's needed. And so you could be a solar panel installer, and you would be considered a green collar workforce.
Yeah, I know one person that started doing that. In fact, I'm going to have to connect her with what you got going on, because I think she'd really be interested in this stuff. She might be worth having on.
Yeah.
Involved with all the local environmental groups.
Yep. So I think once we open it up to apparel and gear and the culture of the farming, agriculture and horticulture and this whole industry, and then other industries within the green collar workforce, There's another term that you're starting to see move around the industry of the landscape, which is called industrial athletes,
Yes.
which is really cool, and I'm really liking that from the standpoint of, it's not the typical whatever, if you're going to stereotype a landscaper to just kind of be whatever you would envision in your head. I think it's now, do you envision someone that's wearing the right clothing, that can walk? I mean, some of my guys, if they tag their walk, they're probably going to be walking anywhere from 10 to 15 miles a day on a maintenance crew if they're trimming and blowing. So there's a huge amount of health needed in this industry to actually be able to sustain and work at a high pace all day. So industrial athletes, another key term, and the green collar workforce. So really, I think the neatness of this podcast will be developed over that triangle of culture and apparel. And the reason why I think apparel and gear tie to culture so well is kind of like what you wear and what you look like is what people tie you with. And I think that the landscape and farming industry or profession has really been underserviced in the sense of, people know, Carhartt, that's the first thing they're going to think of. But most of those companies have not done a really good job at showcasing these industries. And I think that that's what we're going to try to do with Urture. But that being said, that could be a whole podcast in its own. All I got to say is apparel and gear is no joke to get into, and it's super hard. And if I thought service was hard, products and delivering a product to the market is like so abstract to me. But I know that we'll do it. It's just going to take a long time. So, and then the farming, I have my hands a little in the soil of farming this year, a little quicker than I imagined. I bought the farm for a retreat for the landscape company, and primarily for us to do our meetings there, to be able to give employee of the month, employee of the year, or like our landscape designer had some time there because it was her 10-year anniversary. That was the idea of it. And long term, I wanted to become more of a hobby farmer or a farmer as I go into retirement, or just the company gets to a level where I can squeeze out more. But this year I was approached by some neighbors up there, group of guys, and they asked if they could grow hemp on my property. And just for anyone that does not know, hemp is not pot, and has very low THC.
But you can still get high from it.
No, you can't. I guess if you you can't. I mean, you would get sick before you, from whatever you did.
That out there.
Yeah, but so I kind of dove head first with them helping, and so I have a certain amount of the crop that I'm entitled to the income of it, but we haven't made any money yet. So it's all, we're in harvest season right now, and I could go on for hours about the things I know and the things I don't know. So the industry is just, it's a pretty wild industry.
Yeah, it's like it's the gold rush. Like it's just now been, I guess technically legalized.
Federally legal since last fall.
Yeah, so yes, in other
2018.
places it's already been legal. So professionally, there's businesses that have been doing it officially, I guess, or farmlands. I don't know. So federally, meaning that in certain states,
federal, it's legal, and then each state is going to have their own criteria that falls under the federal law. And I think it can even go down to a municipality level, not just the state level.
And like Canada's already been doing it, right?
Canada's been ahead of us for a while on it. I'm going to say 8-9 years at least. Wow. I'm not sure the exact. But
so it's like, it's a gold rush in the sense that
with maybe no gold.
Yeah, that, and it's the first time it's being done like here.
Right.
But in other places, it's already well established. Right. And
the biggest challenge with
being done.
The biggest challenge I'm learning with farming is that if I thought we were susceptible in the service landscape industry to challenges, I think it pales to what farmers go through. And I think weather is just we think weather impacts landscaping. the lawn doesn't get cut today, it can get cut tomorrow. But
Yep.
if the weather comes on Friday, like I think in the Midwest, they're going to get a snowstorm this weekend. And for the people that don't have their crops out of the ground, it's just going to pummel with 2 feet of snow on top of the crops. And who's to say those crops are going to live? Probably not. So, and then you get into insurance and everything with your product, or your goods. But the whole time looking at that crop in the back of the farm all summer, I was just like, one hailstorm could come. Now, if my livelihood was depending on that, one hailstorm wipes out my life that day.
Right.
That's how serious it is. Like, one hailstorm comes and wipes out our flowers at a customer's property in landscaping. It's not going to be the end of the day. It's just, it is what it is, and you go about your day. But for farmers, so that's the number one thing I've learned, the realness on how sensitive farming is. Two, on supply and demand is, so you grow a product, and for this case it's hemp. Well, who's buying? There's a lot of people saying they're buying, but are they really buying? Can they buy? Do they truly have the capital? Are they going to uphold their contracts? So it goes on and on and on. And because this is a new to the market product, or newer on this scale at least, you have a bunch of people not knowing exactly what their product's even getting grown for. Is it getting for CBD oil? Is it going to be for creams? Is it like, what is it? So, and for anyone that just came in, we're talking about hemp, and hemp is not marijuana. It's a different variety of the plant. It has a below 0.3 THC. So it cannot, there's no psychoactives in it. You can't get high from it.
Does it smell the same?
It really does. Well, some of the varieties,
I don't know.
Yeah, some of the really good varieties, some of the varieties we have, the very potent high CBD, the CBD. So I may be talking out of terms. I don't know if smell really equates to
I'm sure there's some.
the level of CBD you want. But I can say that some of the product we had smells like it, from the sense of the plant. It's sticky. It really has all the characteristics of it, but you wouldn't know by looking at it.
It's been about 2 weeks since I was out there, I think, and I still have the pair of clothes I was wearing when we were out there working with it that day, still tied up in a plastic bag because I want to wash them by themselves because they smell so strong.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see where the whole CBD hemp world goes, but I mean, it's just so usable for so many different things. I think, if I was to start talking about health benefits, I'd be way out of my realm. I don't know. But there's a lot of claims right now. And I know there's a lot more studies going on now to really, start showcasing what it can really do.
Yeah. I think the biggest place that I'm seeing it pushed right now, and this is probably just because of my own personal life, is like the action sports industry. I follow so many of these guys that are in like the X Games and all the guys sponsored by Red Bull, and just about any event that you'd ever see at like the X Games. Like all the main guys and girls are sponsored now by like Med CBD or whatever, all these companies with CBD in the name, and it's just crazy to me to see it. And like, I guess you make all types of creams that are good for like your muscles and stuff. You just put them on affected areas, cures soreness or something. I don't know enough about it, but I guess.
Well, and we're into the, we'll call it medical side of it, or food grade side, and then you have the whole hemp hearts and the fibers for food and the seeds, and the fiber and the biomass for concrete. You can make concrete. You can make plastic car parts out of it. So, well, not plastic, but something like plastic. So, it just goes on and on. And when I thought a year ago of hemp, I thought of generally fabric. So I was thinking, because, we've seen hemp shirts, hemp clothing, and if you go back further, you thought that hemp was just for rope, because the Indians used to make rope out of hemp, or hemp out of, whatever, rope out of hemp, So now I have a kind of a joke that we're going to say 1801 Wright Farm, in business since spring. Meaning that, it is a lot just in 1 year, being a part of that crop, I've learned so much just in this season. But I am so new and so unskilled and trained in it too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was funny. I had someone say, "Hey, I just went to a hemp convention in Pennsylvania. I think it was yesterday, actually." And they shot me a text and said, "You should have came with me because I could have used you. You could have been telling me what they're talking about." And I think it's just so hilarious that I'm even being considered
You're the
to
head guy
help.
now.
Because I feel like I'm driving down the road going, "What is going on?" I know. So, but it's how fast it's moving, and it's just cool to be involved, like, that early in the game. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Who knows?
Yeah, it's cool. Like it's cool to like see like a new industry like emerge. Like after the stigma and everything.
Yeah.
Where it was like, oh, it's illegal and this and that. Like to see like how many like good benefits there are and like realistic like applications for it. I think it's just cool to be a part of that.
So the triangle, and something that this podcast helps with, is showcasing this concept of this triangle. I'm talking about horticulture, culture, and agriculture. So that kind of triangle. What do you think on how we're spending time on social media and kind of using social media as our platform to talk about those three things? Like, you and I talk about a lot, obviously. Jared's with me, I don't know, or with our company, average 10 hours a week. And I'm probably discrediting maybe time in editing and stuff like that. But
well, for us too, it's there's been times where you call me up for something simple, and it starts out as a 15-minute conversation about something, an issue or whatever, and then we go off on a tangent then for the next hour and a half talking about whatever. Like a lot of entrepreneurial stuff. Like obviously you're like a mentor to me, so everything I got going on, I've always kind of shared it with you, and you've given me a lot of guidance on that.
So I think so for people, they'll be like, "Oh, here's Zach's podcast. Boy, he's really in social media. He's really doing it." And what do we say about that?
Yeah, we're just getting started.
We didn't even start. Our toe is in the water. Like, we didn't even jump in the water. So that being said, I mean, obviously everyone knows who Gary Vaynerchuk is. If you don't, I guess you're not on social media at all. Yeah, it's just, but he basically talks about, let your guard down, let your shield down, and start to understand where you fit in the whole thing. Is it through video? Is it through sound? Is it through your photography? Is it what is it? Is your message? Are you a speaker? And we don't know that yet. And I think that only comes out in time, over time. Really understand, because our lives are pretty complex. They're fast. They're moving. We take a lot of things for granted. We don't think anyone wants to hear about what we're talking about or what we're showcasing at all. But I think we'd be really surprised how many people are scrolling and paying attention. We just talked about it yesterday. Like, I think things are moving so fast, people almost don't even have time to hit like. They almost they might watch the video. They might interact and watch and look and go, "Oh, that's cool," or "Oh, that's weird," whatever. And they just keep scrolling. Because we talked about it, like when you go back and realize you didn't like it or you didn't make a comment,
you can't even find
it again because it's like gone in the feed. So it's
But I think, like in general, I think social media is an absolutely beautiful thing. It's very easy to get yourself pulled down into the depths of it and the negativity and all the nonsense that gets shared. But I spend so much time, and I've learned this, again, from the action sports industry. I follow so many athletes, and all they do is share clips of themselves crushing their own goals, doing some new trick or doing something amazing. And it's nothing but love and positivity and support in their comment section from their friends, from other athletes, from everybody. And, I catch that feeling too, and then I'm leaving comments where I'm like, dude, that was amazing. And whether they like it or not, I don't care, but it feels good to be a part of growth and positivity and progression. And so, I think that's a beautiful thing with social media. I think the problem we have is that because before social media, we lived in a world where you finding a community of people that were as passionate about the things you're passionate about was very difficult to do because it was all physical.
And that's why they're starting to tie so tight into groups.
If it wasn't for
if you know, on Pandora, I just saw or heard a Facebook ad for XYZ group.
Yeah.
So you see that's starting because there was a big bad sea now of social media where you can get lost in it. So now it's starting to get funneled where we can start to, like I always say, I'm like on a group of like Pennsylvania hikers group or something, and I'm getting inundated by waterfall shots and some wildlife and people hiking and asking about hikes, and I'm like, how am I seeing so many? Because I really like that.
Yeah,
I love hiking, right? So I'm totally immersed in it. So it's awesome.
So, and more specifically, like with the industrial stuff that you're doing now, like with the businesses and all that, like for you to have found people remotely interested in like your entrepreneurial endeavors.
Just last week, 2 guys flew in from Ohio and Atlanta.
Right.
Charlie McKenzie, you can find him on
your LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn, he's all over LinkedIn. Yeah. Charlie McKenzie, or you just look at my LinkedIn page. You'll see a post of his, or he tagged me or something.
Yeah.
And Kurt Gardner, I think. I'm sorry, Kurt, if I'm forgetting your last name. Correct. And Kurt worked at a nature preserve, Cincinnati, and it's like 5,000 acres or something, nature preserve. And then Charlie McKenzie's a kind of I'll call him farming, pest management, soil quality, and crop kind of specialist. And obviously with the hemp buzz right now, he's heavily involved with hemp. And has worked in that arena before the buzz, really, also. But so I, on LinkedIn, put a post of an award I won last year through Lawn and Landscape called Emerging Leaders. Won the award, posted it that night. I remember now, I didn't at the time. He posted, "Hey, congratulations." I'm like, who's it? Hey, thanks a lot. Didn't know him. Means, whatever.
Yeah, just like, all right, thank you.
8 months later goes by, he sees me post something on LinkedIn about the farm efforts and what I plan on doing with this property for the long term. And which, real quick, it's going to be a kind of a retreat center with trails and different ecosystems, different planting areas. It's not just, I'm not going to become a hemp farmer. We're going to have an apple orchard. We're going to have this. We're going to have meadows. Highly landscaped areas too, where we really get to showcase high quality landscaping.
Yeah.
Who's going to interact there? We don't know yet. If it's great enough, there'll be a lot of people that want to interact on the property. So that's why I brought these 2 guys in, Kurt and Charlie. But I met them through LinkedIn, and I'm down in Atlanta, driving back from Jim McCutcheon's, which he's the owner of High Grove Landscaping and one of the premier companies, if not the premier company in Atlanta. And I'm driving, talking to Charlie because we had a phone meeting, because I do that on social media. If we start commenting and talking enough, someone's normally saying, hey, should we set up a phone call? When we just call them like social media dates, but they're not dates. They're like, professional dates, we'll call them.
Like a hangout just to chat about things you share.
So I had a 4:00 phone call, and I'm driving in the pouring down rain back to my in-laws from Atlanta, and I get a phone call, and I actually forgot I was even getting the phone call, and I get it, and he's like, hey, it's Charlie. And we talk. He's like, where are you going? I said, I'm going to blah, 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 whatever town. And he goes, oh, that's where I grew up. So now this is a guy that, reached out, saw my post, said congratulations. 6-8 months later, he sees me post on hemp. Then, yes, he has a horticulture degree, so we're tied through the landscaping also. And one of his partners has had a landscaping company, blah, blah, blah. But nevertheless, he said, that's where I grew up. I'm on my way there from Florida right now, or Asheville or something. He's like, I grew up in that town. I'm like, no shit. So we get lunch the next day. So we have lunch. Then he just flew in with Kurt they met each other, and I never even knew they were talking, but I had a phone call with Kurt about his nature preserve that he works on because, at the time I was on Pocono Heritage Land Trust Board and what's a land preservation nonprofit. So we had a lot in common. We were talking. Those two guys come to my farm in Vermont last week. We spent about 36 hours together, and it was all based off social media. And I think that must be going on with a lot of people all over, but I think for me it was a huge eye-opener that just never would have happened. And Charlie just called me today. Hey, how's the harvest going? He's checking. We have created a friendship and potential partnerships or business relationships for the future that we just don't know, but it's amazing.
That's what I think. Like, it's a beautiful thing because you're bringing people together that would have never really ever even known that each other existed. So
it gets back to, if you're not posting, probably not much is going to happen. Now, you can be a non-poster and be commenting and interacting. I think that's great. Because I find myself doing not enough of that, more post. So I say both is great, but get on one side or the other. But I think a lot of people are just watching it like they're watching TV. And that's the bad side. I would see, because TV is bad, right? Like, like you don't sit around and watch too much TV. Maybe a little Netflix here and there. You kind of get tied into a show or something. But other than that, you don't want to do it. If you do it, you're wasting a lot of time in your life. If that's okay with you, then fine. So social media is the same thing. Make a post, put the phone down, go to work, pick it up. Someone makes a comment, be sure to reply back, communicate back.
It's like your perception of what social media is and what you're trying to achieve with it is what kind of determines like how you're going to use it, right? So like a lot of people look at social media the way they looked at TV. A lot of people would come home from work and they just plant themselves on the couch and turn on the television, they shut their brain off, and they just let themselves be carried through the ride that is television. They just jump into the show, they watch the evening news, they don't do much with it. With social media, a lot of people, and this is it's like a physical, like...
They don't do much with that, and they don't do much with the social media because they're just, while they're watching the news or the TV, they're scrolling their phone.
Yeah, well, I meant like in the period before this was
okay,
so
sorry.
Now, like with social media, it's like out of like physical habit, people just pick up their phone, they just start scrolling through their Facebook feed like mindlessly, right?
Right.
And it's the same thing where you're just letting...
I'm going to the top right to see if I have a message.
Right, and whereas
I'm rarely scrolling lost.
Like, obviously I have like a personal account and I have a business account. I'm mostly here on LinkedIn. That's where I kind of spend most of my time. And with my personal account, yes, I enjoy like seeing what my friends are up to, but I follow again like all these athletes and stuff, right? So when I see like crazy cool things happening, I feel inclined to either comment on it, make some sort of connection with somebody, or then share it with my friends. But that again, that's maybe like 30% of my use on social media. The other 70% is me on my business page, and whether I'm posting or not, which as a photographer, I get a little like. You get a little like finicky about posting things because you're trying to like put a certain theme or look to your timeline because it's your portfolio essentially. So I don't post very much, but what I do is I spend a ton of time on my timeline or looking through hashtags, looking for anything that I find relevant, interesting.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I do that very rarely, but when I do, I see huge value in actually going, all right, I'm going to search this keyword.
Yeah.
I'm going to see who's out there talking about that, and I go to that, and what little bit I've done that, it's huge.
The turnaround is like...
I almost think you could be doing a lot of that in a lower amount of posts, and you would be, I don't know. But here's the big thing. I'm not looking to gain one particular thing. I'm not going to my social media feeds and saying, ooh, I'm going to achieve X, Y, Z, and I think the Charlie and Kurt story on them coming up to the farm for 2 days, that's a prime example of I'm just going to try to be the truest version of myself other than get too, like, I'm not going to get all personal on a million things. And, people say, well, the only thing on social media is what people want you to see. Okay, but do you really want to see all their problems? No, if you and I are together and we're going to go get a a drink and sit down, you don't want me to come to you and talk to you about all my problems. So why would you want me to on social media?
Right.
So yeah, you are going to see a better version of someone in general, or not.
Yeah. It depends. It depends like what people want to put out there. And I mean, you see that though with like musicians and artists. Like you have, like I listen to a lot of different rappers, and like you have guys like NF, who's like, he's not just an up and coming. Like he is like an insanely talented rapper who's like making his mark now. But he specializes in talking more about the ugly side of personal like mental health, right? Like so there's people that will identify with that because they see like, oh, these are struggles I'm going through.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, like yeah, most people don't want to be bothered with other people's negativity.
So is social media? Let's go to a, people don't buy CDs and CDs anymore, tapes or records, or they don't even.
Stubborn. I used to do that up until about 2015.
Right.
16.
So let's just take that industry for example. There's going to be a lot of people that say, "Oh, the music industry is dead. You can't make it anywhere because X, Y, Z." And I think we're seeing a lot, especially in the hip hop world, and it's got to be in other segments of music also, but there are a lot of people actually doing better because they kind of rule their surroundings. They're not owned by labels.
It's almost like the monopoly has been crushed. And not that it was a monopoly, but it's like, again, it's the beauty of social media. You now have artists that it's a low cost of entry because you can buy like these microphones. You can buy these microphones. They're not that expensive.
So we're into about, what are we, $1,100 right now?
Less than that, I think.
Less than that?
I think we were up to like 8.
With the mics and the two cameras.
Zach gave me he said,
small budget.
Yeah, he said it's a small budget of $1,000. And he said, get me everything we need to start a podcast. And so here we are with everything we needed for under the budget. And it's like,
and just for the record, it's the most uncomfortable thing. And I think that like I totally, whenever I would think about doing something like this, I would get really excited, but then immediately, whether I'm going to remember something someone said that's close to me, whatever it is, I could get turned off really quickly. So I think it's just exciting to get over the hurdle of anyone that knows me is like, Zach is not an introvert. But I have some of those tendencies. Like, it doesn't matter. I do.
Does. Everyone likes there a long time.
And it's not easy being comfortable.
Yeah.
Being uncomfortable.
But again, and I think I'm spitballing here, but I'm predicting that we do this consistently, or you do it, whichever, it's your show. The more you do this, the more you're going to start seeing some beautiful benefits of it. The more you're going to have people that want to connect with you because they understand like where you're coming from with a lot of things. And same thing like I was getting at with the musicians is like cost of entry into becoming a musician is much lower now with equipment costs and all that. And then you now have a platform or a forum to now share your work on, your talent, which is, name any social media platform, and musician can be on it. And as soon as you start sharing your stuff, people anywhere in the world can now be paying attention to what you're doing, and that will actually build you a following, and then that's what's going to lead to success much quicker than just being some guy in some random town working at a grocery store wishing you were a musician but saying, oh, I don't have enough money to drive or to take a plane to Nashville to try and get in front of some record label. Like now you have every available option. I mean, outside of having a cell phone. If you don't have a cell phone, I'm sorry, but that's where we're at now. Like it's a beautiful thing. And so,
And so for any small landscaping company or large, who knows, maybe they see value. But I mean, from my experience, I have always tied to people doing a lot more than me. And we'll just say the landscape industry, I've learned a lot from other people. And I basically think in today's world with social media on how a small guy, 3, 4 employees, 6 employees, could message me and be at my company in 3 weeks, spending the day with me, is all real, and they don't have to wait for a face-to-face. But if you're, no harm to my insurance broker, but if you're an insurance broker and you message me, hey, love to connect and blah, 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 I'm probably not going to want to connect. I mean, I'm going to accept, but I'm not going to. But if you send me a message saying, I'd love to get together and this is why.
Yeah.
Or you better just interact at some level that is going to start to create some level of a friendship through social media, because at that point you are one step closer to it becoming a real connection and relationship. And it's just really coming. So what? I've been on Facebook 10 years. Mm-hmm. And I think just in the last year, there is true connection starting. And I wouldn't say it's all through Facebook, to be honest. I would say it's right now LinkedIn. People that aren't heavily engaged in LinkedIn at all, not that I am, but I am engaged, would say, LinkedIn, what are you talking about? Well, get from out underneath the rock. And if you really want to get on and interact and actually gain, I think social media is a great space. I'm not discrediting Facebook or Instagram.
Each platform kind of has its flavor, like what it's meant for, like what it caters
right.
to the best. LinkedIn,
TikTok, I'm trying to figure it out. Clearly, there's a lot of dance contests.
I can't get on TikTok.
I am on it.
Keep deleting
I don't even know. Like, what's funny is I think they have such a smooth platform. That's the one thing I really like, and I really like that there's music tied with the video. I think that's super cool because I love music and I love video. It's just kind of cool. And it's super easy to use. I like that. So it has a lot of the aspects of all of Facebook and Instagram together, but simple played down version. So I think it'll be interesting. All I know is there's a ton of activity on it, a ton, and it's not what everyone's. Oh, it's just like girls dance. No. There's start hashtag looking and searching for what you want, and you're going to actually see a bunch of landscapers dancing while they're laying pavers, joking around, which it's fun. So it's definitely more entertainment versus right now, I guess.
Yeah.
I have a rap song with my dog walking.
Yeah.
So it's I guess it's an outlet for silliness for now, but that I'm sure is going to change. It already is changing.
I would probably enjoy it because I used to use probably Snapchat and Instagram the same way that Musically or not Musically, but now it's TikTok.
I'd be buying stock in TikTok, but I don't think you can. From what I looked.
I don't know if it's public or not.
No, but they're super strong financially. From what I've read.
It's just I've always so obviously I still follow a lot of meme pages because I'm a millennial. That's what we do. We follow a lot of memes, and all the pages that I'm on, all they do is share really cringeworthy videos of people just missing the mark with humor and just not things that you're kind of I don't know why somebody would even bother to post that. And so that's my perception of TikTok, I guess. And I know that's not fair to what it actually is. And so I don't know. Every time I try to get on it, that's the stuff that I think about, and I'm like. So
for me, is the way I learn. I'm kind of a slow learner, definitely hands-on learner. So for Facebook, I just use it. And you just keep using and playing with it. And I think it can come across as a waste of time. But if you're going on it, trying to figure out, what could I post on TikTok that would make sense and connect with someone on something at that platform level. So for me, I would think there's definitely a demographic age bracket that could potentially work for me. So maybe that's a place that we need to be doing more fun posts about. Maybe every day is not fun in landscaping, but there are fun aspects to it. So we could be doing it there versus Instagram. Instagram's serious and it should just look quality.
Yeah.
Facebook is a dumping ground. Instagram or LinkedIn is serious. Now, I did say that there's never politician type political post. And I just saw one the other day, and I'm like, man, I'm about to defriend this guy because I prided LinkedIn for that. But so I think TikTok right now is a great platform for having fun and posting fun stuff. And I think, I mean, I saw Gary Vee did a post, and he had a cowboy hat, cowboy boots, and he was walking through what I believe is his farm. He never talks about it, but I'm pretty sure he owns some orchard or grape vineyards.
Somewhere like in New Jersey.
I mean, he owns wine. He's got his own wine company. Yeah, I don't know, maybe California or something. But he was walking through the field. I think they showed him on a tractor or something driving it too. So whether he's at one of his, he's the buyer, who knows? I don't know. But
that's cool.
So it's and it puts him in the realm of he's a serious wine guy, but he's having fun too. So, and I think that all businesses, including myself, definitely myself, I'm super serious, and it's hard for me to like let back and have some fun. I'm just like go, 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 go. My mind's always serious. So I think TikTok kind of turns that off for a second. Yeah. And I think that's where I want to start to use it and get our company using it from the fun aspect.
I guess for me, like, to even begin to consider using it for my business, number one, I'm scared to be too silly right now. I feel like my business is so new and like fragile or vulnerable or whatever that like I very quietly tiptoe a line and just try to do what I think needs to be done to like keep my business growing. But like the whole idea of like venturing out to like other platforms and like doing things that are like not normally expected, at least in this situation, like in this context, to like be goofy or whatever, like,
right?
To like just have silliness about the business and the operation. Like it makes me nervous, but like I think that's important though. You're right, because it's like if you're working on the culture, right? Like you're showcasing culture in a business, and more than anything nowadays, employees, your average worker, they want to feel like they belong. So
and music and video is a great way to do that. So
they want to be a part of something that's a fun environment that makes them feel like they're accomplishing something, obtaining something, but more importantly that they're building like relationships where they feel valued. And so well,
so we're coming up past our time, I'm sure.
We're allotted. We got about 20 minutes before these cameras run out.
So thanks for anyone that actually listened all the way through. And being that half our conversation was on social media and our kind of current outlook on it, I think that maybe use that for some inspiration to connect with us on something that would be meaningful that we could interact with at some level.
Yeah.
Whether you have a question, whether you have any ideas. We'd love to hear ideas on topics. We'd love to hear ideas on guests, different structure to this. We've toyed around with the idea of not following status quo and getting into a room and sitting in two seats like this. We've also talked about doing it more remote and go to a coffee shop and do it here, do it there. It's just the logistics. We haven't figured out how to.
It's a hardware thing. We just have to get and the equipment to become more mobile just becomes more expensive.
Right.
So that's something in the future.
Because what's funny is like this environment, I'm not in here much. It'll continue to be more of a memorabilia room for me. I think where I start putting in things in here that mean more to me, but or mean a lot to me. But I think that we want to be at the call. I think this show, as time goes, we want to do it where things are happening normally for us versus let's stop all the normalness and get in this room and talk about that. So I think that just gets us a little closer to live action, or whatever you want to call it, whether at the coffee shop, the farm, on a landscape property, next to the truck. So hopefully we can figure out how to get it a little more mobile.
Extension cords.
Yeah.
Hundreds of feet of extension
high quality noise drowning
Take
out
it all
equipment.
the way out into your field.
We have to get wireless mics and multiple wireless mics. So, so anyway, again, we would love some input, right? We definitely like if you want to connect with us and come talk with us and post it up with us. That would be awesome too. So it's about environment. It's about entrepreneurship and hustle behind things. It's about social media. And it doesn't have to be just, hey, I'm not really into landscaping. That's what Zach's doing. It doesn't necessarily have to be about that. It could be a topic that we want to let this go where our relationships and connections allow it to go, right?
Yeah, because like me and Zach are not, we're similar, I think, in a lot of ways, like with where our types of goals that we're trying to achieve in life, but we definitely didn't come from the same upbringing at all. Like pretty much polar opposites, and we crossed paths because of something entirely different.
Through mowing grass.
Not even through mowing grass. It was through the bike shop.
Really? Before? Oh, because that's how you got a job with us.
Because the owner of the bike shop, Dan, he ended up calling you. Actually, it was Tara at the time in your office, and set me up with an interview. And that's because he personally knew you. And I told him I was looking for hard labor. And so he was like, "Have you heard of the Strauser? Why didn't you
oh, you want to be brutally?
Yeah, I mean that was the whole thing.
Brutally beaten.
I was trying to I don't know, because my grandfather grew up on a farm and all that, and I was like, I gotta get some sort of perspective in that lifestyle. And at the time, I was just out of high school, so I was like, let me at least get a few years of at least a year, right, of being a landscaper, doing something like that. So that was where my intent was, and then he connected me with you. We
worked on a mowing crew for the summer.
Okay, this is gonna be a whole nother thing. But what I'm saying is essentially we have entirely different backgrounds, and we've not even begun to scratch the surface of that. So obviously there's going to be hours of you explaining your background. Yeah. Probably at some point I'll share more of my story of how I got to meeting Zach and kind of the journey that my life has been on since we first crossed paths. Yeah. Because there was some time where we met and then we separated and we kind of came back around. So there's a whole series of things that happen in different events that are definitely, I think, worth sharing because it's just cool how things came around.
Yeah, it's
don't worry too much about I'm sure a lot of people are gonna have a lot of questions. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of questions that people have whether or not they ask them. So eventually we're gonna start to kind of hash out a lot of the backstory that matters and kind of set the foundation. But it's not something we can do sitting here in 45 minutes.
No. We could do one just about Jared riding his bike across the country.
Again, and right there, that's what I'd be because now people are going to have a million questions.
That's really where I would say I gained most respect for Jared was he was mowing for us. It was a tough job. He's looking at other options. And when he came to me talking about riding his bike across the country, because I am a biker, not so much lately, obviously, but I go through spurts. I'm coming up to my third spat at being a biker, I guess. I had 2 so far, and now I'm going to build up to my third spat. But when he said he wanted to ride his bike across the country, I was like, definitely you can have off for 3 months. I think it was the first time I was ever I remember someone coming to me be like, hey, I can't work this fall because I have an option to go get paid to be a soccer player. And I was like, why would you want to do that? You have a job. You keep landscaping. I didn't, and he actually owns his own landscaping company now. But this was 15, 16 years ago. But so there's been many things like that where people, I want to do this, and I could never fathom why they would want to do that over landscaping, right? Yeah. Which there is some truth to it. I think it's a great industry, but at times, obviously, it's definitely I'm being a little too biased. But when he rode his bike across the country, and then I think you actually came back and helped shovel for a winter, right?
Yeah, I think I worked the next winter, but I was also working the ski resort.
Right, so I was like, yeah, he can come back and shovel. He can come and go as long as he wants because he rode his bike across the country. So, but yeah.
Yeah, again, it's going to be a whole other thing, and that's why I'm sure people are going to have questions about a lot of things. And again, there's a whole spectrum of things to be discovered about you. I guess me, but this is obviously your show. I'm just here to be.
Hey, man.
So, yeah, there's our timer, which means that.
So we set a timer. We're out, and for anyone that actually listened to the whole thing, thank you so much. Or hopefully you weren't just like, what the hell did I just do for 40 minutes listening to these guys? But
yeah,
thank you.
There's gonna be a lot more structure in the future, I'm sure, but more or less
or not, which is okay.
Yeah, that's totally fine. We can do whatever we want.
Yeah. So. It's our equipment, and we can hit post, and it's up.
Yeah.
So thanks again, and definitely, if there's one thing we inspire you to do is reach out and connect and share, so we can build some audience. Thanks.
Yeah. See you guys.